Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is Joyce Bender with Disability Matters on voiceamerica.com. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Such great listeners, such great listeners. I so appreciate you always listening to this show. As I told you last year, I had my 1000th episode. Been on 22 years with our lead sponsor being no one other than Highmark, who is the lead sponsor of this show. But none of that would happen, like those 1,000 episodes, if I didn't have great listeners like you. And so many of you I meet, I just want to say, if any of you who are listening go in July to the Disability In Conference, make sure you come up and meet me. I would love it. And now to the over 170 countries with listeners. Thank you so much. I don't know why this continues, but Singapore has the largest listening, largest. And there are so many, even countries I wasn't that familiar with in Africa. And there will be one listener. I say it every show. I'm still going to say it again. One person can make a difference. One person. You know what you need to do? You need to go spread the news about this show to everyone, especially English speaking, or go to the American Embassy because they have the ability there to listen to the show. Um, because you know what this is all about, quality of life, the least of these, making sure you have dignity and respect and realize that you can work. So thank you all. Thank you so much. Hello, Yoshiko Dart. Special shout out. You know, I'll never forget you, Yoshiko. Never. In case you don't know, I know you've heard me say this on every show for years, the Hello, Yoshiko, who is the wife of the late, great Justin Dart, the general. He and Yoshiko went multiple times around the United States, meeting with groups of people with disabilities to get them behind the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So, you know, she is a historic legend and my friend, and I love her. So, hello to you, Yoshiko. And again, hi, Mark. Thank you. This company, if they tried to be better to people with disabilities, they couldn't, even if they tried. I mean, they're just the best, hands down, for people living with disabilities from the top down. You can say how great, oh, Joyce, you're so wonderful. Oh, I really think you're great. And I'm going to say, oh, good. Have you hired anyone? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. Well, let me tell you about Highmark. Yes, as you know, they hire people. And here I am, the CEO of Bender Consulting Services, a woman living with epilepsy and a hearing loss, and this thousands of people with disabilities that found jobs. It all started with Highmark, which is why, here we go, Vice President Joy Matoney in Diversified Business Planning and Enablement is back with us today because I forced her, and it is always a pleasure to be with her. I said today on LinkedIn, and I meant it, she is absolutely one of the best people I know. She is kind. She is caring. She's brilliant in addition to all of that, but she has soul. She is just a great leader. I was so excited to have her on the show today. You will learn from her. You know what you'll learn? What a great leader is like. That's what you're going to learn. So, Joy Matoney, welcome to the show.
Wow. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be back. But really, thank you for that introduction. That's really, truly means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, it's all over LinkedIn and social media what I said, but I meant every word of it. I mean every minute of it. But I think I told you this last time you were on, how like I was really surprised to find out that you went to Northwestern and got this degree in biomedical engineering. Uh, so impressive. And I asked you then, but I'll ask you now, what made you pursue that career path? What made you decide when I go to college, this is what I'm going to do? What made you decide that?
So I would say my journey from Northwestern to Highmark even, right, is definitely like many others, right, was not a straight line. I did not know exactly what I wanted to do when I went to school, but I knew I had a passion for learning. I wanted to be challenged. I very much loved and was inquisitive in nature and loved how things worked. So engineering was definitely a natural something that I was very curious about. I felt like I was kind of a natural problem solver, wanted to know how things worked. And then on the medical side, biomedical side of things, I grew up in a big family, one of six kids. My mother navigated life with multiple sclerosis and kind of gave me a firsthand understanding of just the human body, how important health is, right? And how the body is incredibly resilient, but also has a number of vulnerabilities and just the critical role that innovation, technology can play in medicine, all play in enhancing lives. So to me, that was kind of like a natural interest of mine and really, while I didn't go directly then into medicine, I went into consulting after school. I do think that engineering mindset, analyzing, complex systems, how we seek efficiencies and designing solutions are all, were really invaluable to me and helped me transition into the healthcare consulting world and then eventually here at Highmark. So it taught me to approach challenges to, in a way that was more structured, taught me on the medical side of things to be more empathetic and forward thinking. And, I think all of that's crucial in a dynamic field like healthcare. So it positioned me well, I believe, even though I'm not necessarily doing anything in that specific in that space, right? It kind of allowed me to get to where I am.
Yeah, well, two things I want to say about that. First, I read this article where it was in Forbes, where this executive said that one of the top questions he asked candidates, what are you curious about? And he feels that is something that helps make you successful. And there you brought that up at the beginning, because when you're inquisitive, that also means you think outside the box, And I don't know, I assume you've seen this, that people are successful that you've seen have that same nature.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've talked to similarly, I think you've talked to the head of our health plan, Tom Doran, right? He comes from an aerospace engineering background. I think
Yeah.
it's all kind of very similar, right? Once you kind of have that curiosity and being able to tackle problems, that's what we do every day, right? We're tackling some of the most challenging problems that, our society faces around healthcare and how do you afford it and how do you make sure you're helping to navigate people through the healthcare system and getting the care they need when they need it. It's all about problem solving every day, right? So being able to kind of bring that to your workplace in a way that, excites you and energizes you, I think is really just an amazing combination.
Well, uh, you definitely have it. And Joy, speaking of you have it, for our listeners, explain, well, where do you work now and what is your position? What do you do?
Sure. So I currently work within our diversified businesses and growth team at Highmark. So My role, I lead, I think as you mentioned in the beginning, I lead the planning and enablement team for that organization. So in essence, my role is about ensuring that our various business segments are not just, meeting their objectives, but how do we enable them a way so that they're truly thriving and we expand the impact that we have on the broader organization and the enterprise. So it involves everything from like strategic planning and execution to how do we help identify and foster new partnerships, opportunities that'll help us grow, create scale so that we can create solutions that can be utilized by, other health organizations, by our customers. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about really contributing to Highmark's mission, which is about creating a remarkable health experience that frees people to be their best. So at its core, I'm still very much a problem solver in what I do.
Well, when you say like uh, enablement, what does that mean? Like what are you doing in that area?
Yeah, so we pretty much wear a lot of hats, right? And we really go where where they're if you look across the organization and we think about how do we position the company to help grow, we think about enablement or just all those different things that you can line up to help make sure that whether it's people, process, or technology, that you have the right readiness in place so that the organization can and is ready to adopt, right, a new process, a new technology, a new process, a new partnership, right? So that you're preparing it in a way that you're truly getting the adoption that you want to get and the business benefits you want to get from any type of initiative or strategy. So it could be something in terms of helping make sure that you have the right communications in place, that you're thinking through the different training needs that might be happening. How do we help make sure leaders are positioned in a way that they are effectively sponsoring engagements? And how do we help them be successful in their role as leaders and bringing the people and teams along the way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, when I talk to people about our great friend, Deb Rice Johnson, who, by the way, everyone just received the Dream Maker Award. Actually, she will be the only one anywhere in the world that Bender gave this award to, the Bender Leadership Academy. And that is because of her. I was able to start the Bender Leadership Academy, helping high school students with disabilities prepare them for the world of work and uh, how to fight bullying. In addition to that, 5 years ago, when I lost Mary Brocker, who everyone knows I was extremely close to, and she was the president and died in a terrible hiking accident. You know who the first person was to keep calling me to say a prayer? Deb Rice Johnson. I mean, that's just who she is. She is like that. But people ask me, Joy, frequently, they'll say, I don't understand diversified businesses. Even people I talk to, sometimes at Highmark, they don't
Yeah,
understand what all the diversified businesses are or what that means. So I want you to explain that to our listeners,
sure.
what they are, what they do, and start with what's it like? What have you learned from Deb Rice Johnson?
Let me start with the hard one first, right? I am so incredibly fortunate to work alongside Deb Rice Johnson. She is, and I think I talked about her the first time I was with you. She is so incredibly inspiring as a leader, and such a model, right? Really, she's a leader with heart, right? She
Mhm.
really is. So she doesn't just have vision and you know, the foresight into how to mobilize teams and get them rallied around a cause and a purpose, right? Like she sets a goal and she goes out and she achieves it, but she also has incredible heart along with it and really cares about this company so much and cares about the people who work here and our members that serve us. You just see that in everything that she does. It's incredibly inspiring, and I learn from her every day. So that's Deb. So she is our fearless leader of our diversified businesses. She is the CEO of the diversified businesses at Highmark and also the chief growth officer for the organization as a whole. When we talk about diversified businesses, essentially it's about our portfolio of companies and services that extend beyond traditional health insurance. So, you know, people think about Highmark, they think about the Blue Cross and the Blue Shield and the fact that, you know, we provide health insurance across Delaware, West Virginia, you know, New York, Pennsylvania. You know, we have that footprint across our blues, and are an important part of the blues footprint nationally. But we also have these businesses that kind of extend beyond that traditional health insurance. So these are the engines that help drive additional revenue and health solutions. You know, you think about kind of the integrated health solutions that are needed to better serve our members, our communities, and help connect health organizations with innovative partners, products, technologies. I'll try to put it into something more tangible that people can understand by just walking through a couple examples. So a few of them include our dental company. So United Concordia Dental, it is the seventh largest dental carrier in the nation. We serve over more than 11 million members, and that includes
Wow.
truly, it's substantial. And you think about it also includes, you know, our government's active duty military personnel and their families that are stationed worldwide. So you think about the impact that we have. It's not just in those four core states, right? But really it's that national solutions that we offer. HM Insurance Group is another national company and diversified business within Highmark's portfolio. It provides stop loss solutions for self-funded employers, which in other words, really means about helping to protect companies that self-fund their employee health insurance costs from those high dollar claims, right, that otherwise would be catastrophic. So it helps limit their risk and provide them a solution where they can control costs for their employees. An Engine is another example. It is a health tech, health solutions company. It provides technology services to health plans worldwide. So it's really about our diversified businesses kind of cross and think about, they're so important because they help not only diversify earnings, which help us weather market fluctuations, but they provide revenue and earnings that helps drive additional growth that help us to reduce cost. Think about improving health outcomes and really make us even more attractive when to other health plans, right, that we partner with, which is so part of our portfolio.
Oh, wow. I mean, you know what, Joy, I remember when United Concordia was very little. I remember when they were small. Look now what's happened.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seventh largest.
isn't that something though? Wow,
Yeah,
that is amazing. And so many other areas. You're right. When people think of Highmark, they don't even think about the all the hospitals.
that's
You
right.
know, yeah, they don't even think about that part. But that's why they are the third largest insurer in the United States. Wow. So my question, why? Why do you think Highmark has become so successful? Because once again, I remember it was Blue Cross of Western PA
Yeah.
because I remember way, way back in time. Why do you think it, and what do you think are some of the inherent values?
Um, I have to say, first and foremost, it's our partnership mindset. So we genuinely believe that we need to create joint value with other partners. Understanding that oftentimes, when we look to partner with other Blues plans in particular, so if you think about our history, when you were saying, we first started as a much smaller plan, right, in Western Pennsylvania, and then combined um, with I think it was with the Shield, right, of Central Pennsylvania, and together became Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield. We've since grown, right? We've expanded by affiliating with the Blue Cross Blue Shield of West Virginia, the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Delaware. In 2021, we affiliated with Health Now, which was located in New York. And now we're very excited to say it was actually just this past December that Highmark, we have plans, pending regulatory approval, but we plan to affiliate with the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City, which is significant. So together with Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas City, we will become the third largest Blue Cross Blue Shield plan in the US, which is, to your point, very significant, right? And it's an important part of how we help tackle, and create the scale that's needed to keep costs down, to make sure that we can continue to focus on, innovative solutions that help address health outcomes and keep people healthier. But, going back to the values, partnership mindset is absolutely number one. The second one I would say is, just that we recognize that healthcare is best when it's delivered locally. So when we partner with, the Delaware, West Virginia, New York, and Kansas City plans, we really recognize that, as much as it's about having nationally recognized capabilities and leading solutions, having that commitment that's very real and very core to who we are, to where people in those communities where people live, work, play, is so essential to that making us successful. And that's something that we really try very hard to make sure that that is something, the commitments we make to employment in those areas, right? These are our neighbors. So that's a really important part of it. And then the last thing I'll say is, we do purposefully, when we look for partners, we look for partners purposefully who are like-minded and have the same kind of mission-driven. We have a bold mission at Highmark, as I mentioned, right? Creating those remarkable experiences that free people to be their best. So how do we drive those solutions that lead to healthier outcomes? And really, we want partners that share in that goal and that mindset. So that's the other part that I think that's really helped us to be successful.
Yeah, well, that's very obvious. Such great leadership there. Joy, what is a chief growth officer? What is that?
Yeah, so that's about really helping us grow scale and our footprint and our revenue across the organization. So when we talked about, it's not just within and across our health plan, right? So the fact that we have this affiliation with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City is really significant. Deb Rice Johnson was absolutely the driver behind helping to make that happen from the very beginning, right, to the very end. She's been crucial to that. We also look to, on our provider side, right? We announced that we are pending approval again, that we have plans to affiliate, AHN plans to affiliate with the Heritage Valley Health System, right? And really strengthen our provider and delivery assets. So it's really about trying to seek out those partnerships. How do we unlock value and kind of create joint value for organizations so that we all can prosper?
Yeah, I mean, it's so wonderful. And by the way, Highmark of Delaware is where we teach one of the Bender Leadership Academy classes, and they are awesome. They are great. And then, of course, we have a class at Highmark, Pittsburgh Public Schools in Delaware, the Delaware school districts. And that's just how Highmark is. I mean, I can never speak highly enough of this company. But the one thing I wanted to ask you that, wow, it's a hard question. Um, you have seen, especially with your consulting background, so many changes in the healthcare world. What do you think are going to be the biggest impacts coming over the next several years?
Yeah, that's a great question and a big one. Um, and we all know healthcare is ever evolving, right? You have stuff that's going on with technologies, new technologies. You have regulatory pressures that are coming in. It's constantly changing. Um, and we've certainly seen tremendous shifts. I mean, when you think back before COVID, I know we were trying to do, telemedicine. It was always, or, getting people to log in and access, their claims from their phones. Now it seems like that that adoption, right, of those digital health technologies have just skyrocketed. And I think it's going to continue to skyrocket. So things like telemedicine, AI, remote monitoring, how we personalize medicine. They're not just conveniences anymore. I think they're fundamentally reshaping how care is delivered. And, and it's making it more accessible and proactive. And we need to find ways that we can tailor it, right, to individual needs. So I think that's one of the biggest things that's changing ever fast, right? It's constantly moving at lightning speed. Um, Another thing I would say is I have seen, an increased focus, right, on how you think about health. So moving beyond treating tradition like illness and understanding and addressing some of the environmental, social, economic factors that impact a person's well-being. So taking a more holistic approach to health and those social determinants to really help create healthier populations has been a bigger focus. And then finally, the other big trend I'll mention, I think, is just a continued emphasis on how we provide integrated care models. So this is precisely something that Highmark is very much trying to pioneer with our, I'll call blended health strategy, where we think about breaking down the silos between a traditional health insurance payer and a health provider delivery system. And how do we truly coordinate care in a way that it's more about prevention, right? And helping people to live those healthier outcomes and creating more efficient systems, right? That we can make all these forces, right? To help us think about how we provide care in a way that's more personalized, preventive, and equitable, right?
I remember, Joy, when, as you said, the telehealth was already starting on a smaller scale, and then COVID. And all of a sudden, it soared and it just never stopped.
That's
I
right.
mean, and you know
Yeah,
what? Think about this. Epilepsy. You can't drive a car. You have to wait till you have someone that takes you to an appointment. Now you can talk to your epileptologist and not worry about the
right.
transportation. And for people with mental health issues, it's hard getting sometimes them to the hospital because of dealing with the stigma, everyone's seeing you. And here we go, having that, one-on-one digital health makes such an incredible difference. I mean, weren't you surprised how much this took off?
Oh, It, I remember having conversations. I worked before working with Deb. I had worked in our government programs team, working in on our Medicare Advantage products, were you working with seniors? And I remember being in discussions, be like, we'll never get seniors to log on to their app on the phone, or we'll never get them to access their claims online. And I mean, it is a new world. Like people are much more savvy than they've ever been. And I think, they want things at their fingertips. And I would say, it changes a lot, even in terms of how they engage and interact with their providers and with their insurance companies. They just, it's so important to be able to have things that are more personalized type of experiences that you're helping people navigate and really being there to engage with them differently.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it is phenomenal how all of that has happened. Now, I was selected as an ambassador for the University of Pittsburgh School of Business as it relates to health, to be one of the ambassadors, basically, just working uh, as a representative in this health business perspective. One of the things at a one session I went to was all AI, all about AI. And you know what's amazing is that who knows? This could lead to a cure for some illness or some disease, AI, because you're putting all this data in and it's just churning, 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 looking, how can it improve that? And wouldn't that be amazing, Joy, if
Oh,
that,
truly. I mean, I think there's so much advancement you think about within, the pharmaceutical space, right? And how, and certainly, we believe in Highmark, right? That having access to the right drugs is so critical, right? These drugs no more are just about managing symptoms. Like some of them truly are, positioned to be more curative, and we have to find ways, right, um, to leverage the data that we have to help provide insights that help us to connect and really connect back with, what we have as access to as an insurer, right? To be able to connect that information and learnings we have with our providers, right? So that they have this information, right, to help change their practices and how they prescribe. We have the power to do that, which is really exciting.
yeah, because I was talking to Karen Hanlon, the president at Highmark, saying that, the day will come, probably not long off into the future, that with AI, you could look at the person's DNA and say, okay, wait,
Yeah.
they have a propensity for breast cancer, or they have a propensity for epilepsy. I mean, that will be so
Be awesome.
wonderful.
Awesome.
I mean, that would be so wonderful.
I do
So
believe that is
I,
in our future. It
yeah,
really, I do.
well, we got a lot to talk about yet, but first it is time for our news break on the half hour. Mathis on the mic with our news for the day. Hello, Jennifer Mathis.
Hi, good to
How
be
are
here.
you?
Good.
Oh, and how's that weather in Washington, D.C. today?
It's unseasonably warm,
Is it?
alarmingly
Well,
warm. Yes,
don't get your hopes up. It's like that here in Pittsburgh, but I saw that sometime next week the low could be 29 and there's
yes,
a chance there could be snow. So you know
yep,
how March is, up and down, up and down. You never know
exactly.
what's going to happen. And Jennifer Joy, who's an executive at Highmark, hires people with disabilities. So that is where the rubber meets the road. Because
Indeed.
Jennifer, you are highly esteemed uh, media, New York Times, Washington Post, talking about mental health issues, but with all disabilities. Would you not agree that employment is a issue that has not been solved?
Absolutely. Senator Harkin always used to say it was the one part of the ADA where we really made so little progress and
Mhm.
had such a long way to go.
Mhm.
And that
I know.
remains true.
So that is why, Joy, you are making a difference every day. Well, Jennifer, once again, every day I'll be watching CNN and I'll say on Monday night, what the heck could Jennifer pick to talk
Well,
about? But I know there are some major things happening. So, Jennifer, what news do you have for
Yes.
us?
So I have an update from last week because
Oh,
last
good.
week we talked about Minnesota and the action that the federal government was taking against Minnesota to freeze $250 million in Medicaid funding for things like home and community-based services, community mental health services, personal care services, things that people with disabilities and older adults really depend on every day, and that are just critically important services to people's lives. And Minnesota had filed a suit against CMS, against the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, saying essentially, you have told us almost nothing about what you expect, about where you think this fraud is. That was the reason for the freezing of this enormous amount of money that went really across the board for all services in these categories of services where the government was saying, we think there is high vulnerability to fraud here. It was somewhat unprecedented for the government to freeze that amount of funding. And at least according to Minnesota, they have gotten very little guidance about what it is that the government still expects them to do. They did a lot of things in response to the government's initial notices and said that the government hasn't told them even, what is insufficient about what they did, and yet just proceeded immediately to freeze this money. So last week we talked about, how this might happen in other states as well. This is part of a government initiative to root out fraud, waste, and abuse. And since then, it has turned out we have learned that the government actually uh, both CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and also the majority on the House Energy and Commerce Committee have sent letters. House Energy and Commerce Committee sent letters to 10 states a week ago, today, March 3rd, claiming that they are concerned about fraud, waste, and abuse in their Medicaid programs. Again, focusing heavily on home and community-based services, personal care services, non-emergency medical transportation, community behavioral health services, and claiming widespread fraud, waste, and abuse, um, asking for enormous amounts of data and analysis, and basically not having a lot of evidence of fraud, but kind of pointing to vulnerable areas, in some cases pointing to an isolated instance of fraud that may have happened. One happened in 2018, for example, and then one happened last year, and saying, because of that, we're concerned about the entire category of services. So, for example, CMS sent a letter to New York, and one of the things they talk about is behavioral health psychotherapy codes, 30-minute sessions, 45-minute sessions, together accounted for more than $2.5 billion in total statewide payments over 3 years, from 2023, well, it's unclear, 2023 to 2025, so maybe two, maybe three. But they say the magnitude of the utilization of these services warrants additional scrutiny of documentation, medical necessity determinations, and counter validation, etc. And so they are pointing to services that people are using a lot and saying, we are concerned that there is very high use of these services. They also say that for personal care services, they point to the number of claims, that there's a lot of claims, and they basically say, because of the claim volume and the high proportion of beneficiaries receiving these services, and the fact that these services are billed in 15-minute increments for personal care, that all of those things together make us think that there is widespread fraud. And, that's a pretty thin reason to suggest widespread fraud, waste, and abuse. Typically, the government would have a lot more information if it was going to level these types of accusations. But in any event, this is what is happening. And I think the concern is that what happened in Minnesota may happen in a lot of other states, that you will see freezing of Medicaid services, of federal reimbursement for Medicaid services across the board for services that serve people with disabilities and older adults in their communities, in their homes, on a daily basis, that are necessary for them to survive. And, this is proceeding without the kind of process that ordinarily would happen in these situations. And so, very concerning. And I think, it is important for people to let their congressional representatives know just how important these services are to them, because I'm not sure that it is so clear to all of the people in Congress what these services are and what they mean to people's lives and how people use them and what will happen if people don't get these services. So I think to the extent that people are getting these services on Medicaid, it is useful, I think, to let your representative know that you are concerned about these actions that are being taken. I will say the 10 states that got letters from the House Energy and Commerce Committee are New York, Vermont, Pennsylvania, Oregon, Maine, Colorado, Washington State, Massachusetts, California, and Nebraska. And so in those states in particular, I think it is useful for people to contact your representatives.
You said Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Terrible. All of this is terrible. So, listeners, you're my secret weapon. In other cases, Jennifer, and even way before that with Perry, we would say, call, and we would get all these people calling. You've got to call your representative. Doesn't matter if you're in Minnesota or not. Now, if you're in Minnesota, absolutely, you've got to call and get other people to call to say, don't do this, stop this. Then in all these other states, we got to start calling now, because think what that would do to people in so many areas. Oh my goodness, like the community-based services, so many things. So I want all of you, I mean it, get off the show when you're done, start calling. Jennifer, I assume there's a big national disability banding together?
There is, and there have been letters sent to Congress. There have been letters sent to the agency, to Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. There have been letters sent to the oversight committees in Congress and to the leadership in both houses of Congress. And, people are trying to explain how important these services are. Of course, nobody thinks that fraud, waste, and abuse should happen, and nobody is encouraging fraud, waste, and abuse, but to take the kinds of actions that are being taken on the scale that they're being taken, at the pace that they're being taken, without the kind of evidence that ordinarily would be needed to support that kind of across the board freezing, is very, very troubling. And in the other states, we haven't seen the across the board freezing at this point, but it is clear that that is, certainly on the table, given what has happened in Minnesota, and given sort of that these things seem to be following along the same path. And so it is important that people make it known how important.
Well, you know what else? When you get this show with Joy today, share this with other people, because then they're going to hear the news also. Jennifer, thank you so much. Keep encouraging us, keep being that advocate you are, and let us know next week what has happened.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
right, take care.
Bye-bye. You know what, Joy? It's always something.
Wow.
There is always, and you
Rough.
won't know what it's like till it hits you. But when
Yeah.
it hits you, then you'll know, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Um, Back to the great news with you of hiring people. My question is 70% of people with disabilities, 70% are still not counted in the workforce. Yet Highmark hires all these people. So why do you think that is? I mean,
Well,
why is this so different at Highmark?
yeah. The question of why it's so hard for other companies, right, is a complex one. But I will say, from Highmark's perspective, I think our openness to hiring people with disabilities, it's not just about altruism, right? It's really fundamental to our success and has been deeply embedded in our organizational culture because we know it works. And we firmly believe it's a strategic business imperative. We must do this. And we see that, demonstrated by our leadership, right? From David Holmberg to Karen Hanlon to Deborah H. Johnson and many, many others. But we've made a very intentional executive level commitment to making sure that people with disabilities have meaningful employment opportunities in Highmark. So it's not just a program. I think it's part of our DNA. We recognize that to truly deliver on our mission, right, to create remarkable experiences that free people to be their best. You'll hear me keep saying that because I do think it's the core to who we are and it's foundational. It translates into everything we do at Highmark. But, our workforce then must reflect those diverse members and communities that we serve. And I think, employees with disabilities, we know this, right, often bring kind of an unparalleled problem-solving skills, resilience, all these unique insights that they gain because they're navigating this world that wasn't always built for them. So having those perspectives only enriches our teams. It helps spark innovation and ultimately allows us to create that better products, services, and experiences, right, for everybody. So truly, and you go back to it, it's a business imperative. We're better because of it. So it's a mutual benefit. We gain incredible talent and individuals gain meaningful employment opportunities to thrive. I know for me personally, I get behind it too because, I talked before, my mother, she navigated this world with MS. She went back into the workforce. It was so important and crucial for our family growing up. We didn't have a lot of means. So her going back into the workforce after my youngest sister went back to school was so key. So I knew what it meant for our family and our families, it helped and just the opportunities it afforded us because of it, right? So I know how important it is on both sides, but it really is an honor to be able to work for an organization that recognizes that values it, and prioritizes it. And, definitely want to say, Joyce, it's been a pleasure working with you. And, the talent that you bring to us and the individuals you bring to us is so important to what we do.
Well, thank you. It goes both ways. Let me say that. And I'm glad you explained it, Joy, because hiring a person with a disability, yes, it's the right thing to do, but it's a business investment. The person has to be right for the job. You're hiring a person as a business investment. For example, I took one day when David Holmberg was at Highmark and I was there, we brought in one of the people that Highmark had hired. He's in a wheelchair and he was visiting up from Indianapolis because he works remote for Engine. And he told David, he said, and David Holmberg, remember everyone, he's the CEO of all of Highmark. all 44,000 people or however many it is. But he told David, "Oh, yes, I was crossing the street and a cab hit me, and the wheelchair went flying, and it broke my wheelchair. But in addition to that, I had all these lacerations." And David said, "Wait, wait, wait. Are you okay?" "Yes, I am." "No, but what had happened then?" He said, "Oh, I called Uber to go to the hospital." And David said, "No, don't do that." He said, "I thought they would get me there faster." But anyway, he has cerebral palsy. He uses a wheelchair. He's one of the top employees, at Engine. And he said, "So I called Bender Consulting and I say, bad news, but good news. Bad news. I got hit by a car. Good news. I'm only missing 1 day of work." And David said, that says it all. And I could be on here all day giving stories like this, but I hear all the time about how great the employees are and what they do, but it's a business investment. Retention, that's just one example. I mean, there are so many examples that you could get gratitude. People that hire, Accenture did a study and found out that companies that hire people with disabilities are 2 times more profitable than those that do not. So I'm glad you explained it that way because that is true. So Joy, wow, you've really moved up there at Highmark. But over the past several years, what would you consider your greatest accomplishment?
So you asked me this question last time, and I really believe ultimately there's no greater accomplishment as a leader than being able to see the employees that you hire, right? How they develop and thrive and succeed in their own careers. To me, that is what I get great joy from. I really do as a leader. I think there's nothing better than seeing your employees that you work with thrive and develop in their own right. Um, and I would say for me, right, it's not always about the big stuff. Sometimes it's about really connecting to what drives you each day and what brings you joy and fulfillment. And I will say, for me, it's when I have the opportunity to know when I can uniquely add value, right, every day. So I've learned over the years a little bit about myself. It's taken time, right? But I've come to learn, I'm a connector. I'm good at helping an organization like connect the dots between whether that's between initiatives, ensuring the right people are engaged from the onset of programs, and making sure that there's a lot of things that are coming at people on a daily basis. So when you're able to kind of take those dots and connect them in a way that's meaningful for people to help them understand, to get them bought into whatever you're trying to get them to do differently, uh, in a way, right, that is going to bring and deliver the maximum results. To me, that's those anytime I get those opportunities, it's something I feel really proud of. So when we talked earlier about, this partnership with Blue KC, the fact that I was able to be and play even a little bit a part of that was incredibly meaningful for me and feels like a great accomplishment because, how we were able to help tell our story of why Highmark, and help them, get to a point where they decided, no, they want to be our partners in this journey to help reinvent health. To me, that's just really meaningful.
Oh, that is so. Well, that just shows what you're like, you know, where I just happen to have it right here. Yes, here it is. This is you. Servant leadership. That's you, Joy.
Oh,
Servant leader.
thank you.
That's you. Okay, so for any young people with disabilities, which you saw a few of them speak at the event for Deb Rice Johnson, what message
So,
would you like them to hear from you today?
so for all the young people and, others, truly, my message would be this. Your journey, your experiences, your unique perspectives, they're not limitations. They're truly your superpowers. They give you a unique perspective and a lens of the world, right? That you can bring to the workplace. And, you think about the resilience you bring, the creativity you have to bring, the problem solving, all that's forged, right? By you navigating through this world, right? Is something that, again, it becomes your superpower. So don't let anybody diminish that. I would say embrace your strengths, cultivate, those talents, never stop learning. Um, the world of work and society at large are constantly and rapidly evolving. We talked about, the dynamic nature of healthcare in itself, and there's going to be an increasing demand for diverse thinkers and innovators. So you have so much to offer. So I say, believe in yourself, pursue your passions with courage, and, you realize and know that your contributions are not just welcome, but they're essential. They're truly essential. So go out there and show the world what you can do. That's what I would say.
What a great message. Well, Joy, first of all, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you for being you. Keep on changing the world with your great leadership. I just think so highly of you. We all do. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for being a champion. We love
All
you.
right. Well, as I said, I got a great partner. So we end every show with a quote. And today it is, have a heart that never hardens, and a temper that never tires, and a touch that never hurts, said Charles Dickens. This is Joyce Bender, America's Voice, where disability matters at voiceamerica.com. Remember, in the words of Mary Brocker, when you go out tomorrow, choose joy. And I assure you it'll be so much better. Talk to you all next week.